Well, there's definitely a lot of progresses made in that area. For example, we have many FM radio stations, we have many television stations, but that media freedom is open to abuse. The life of a journalist is fraught with danger. There are a lot of threats, and that's the very basic but true reality on the ground. The threat is there. The kidnapping of local reporters, a lot of them have been killed. Intimidation is there. And as I said, the freedom of media is truly one of the achievements in the last 10 years. But how do you protect that? How do you create a system where you make sure that people are not threatened or killed or kidnapped just because they have written an article or they've expressed their views?
Where do you see media freedom in Afghanistan after the international forces leave the country?
Well, I think there will be very big and imminent dangers posed towards Afghan journalists in particular. We hope that the international community, the Afghan government, will ensure that that doesn't happen. That there is a clear mechanism if people are not happy with certain aspects of reporting or journalism, they should do so by complaining at a court. And the answer is not kidnapping. The answer is not to kill or intimidate a journalist, because you don't have to. You don't shoot the messenger. Journalists are just there to tell the story.
One of the things you mentioned in your lecture today was talking to people. Please explain the importance of talking to people in Afghanistan.
Well, what I meant was that we as journalists, we have to talk to the ordinary people, to the Afghan people. We have to talk to people in the government, which we do, but it's the story of the Afghan people. In Afghanistan, everything is almost done, or all the deals are done over green tea. You have to have the patience to go, sit down, whether that's a shopkeeper or a bus driver or a tribal elder or someone who lost members of his family. Just sit down and keep talking and keep drinking tea until you get the story, until you create that layer of confidence. And part of the problem is that a lot of the time that doesn't happen. Even those in the Afghan media, they have their reports on certain topics, but the people are missing, although the report is about the people.
And another thing was that was mentioned was the advantages of being a foreigner reporting in a country, and also the advantages of being a local, as you are reporting in Afghanistan. What advantages do you have as opposed to a foreign journalist coming to Afghanistan?
Well, I have certain advantages and disadvantages. The advantages I have is I speak the language. I'm from there. I know the country well. I know many of the people. But I'm also at risk. There are many things that I don't want to do. Corruption, drug trade, and many other stories are something that I would never be able to touch. So that's where colleagues in the international media, they are better equipped to deal with those stories. They have experience. They have better protection than an Afghan would have. And let's move beyond Kabul, because I'm based in Kabul. The real threat is to people in the provinces. The real threat is to the people who brings us the news from those remote corners. They are at a great deal of risk rather than me or my other colleagues in the Afghan media in Kabul.
To me, it seems that you're quite hopeful for the Afghan future, even though the prospects are a bit uncertain, of course, after the international forces leave the country. Why are you so hopeful?
Well, if you're an Afghan, you're of course hopeful. It's in your blood. You really cannot, hide that fact. But this is a country where we have had hope through some of its very darkest periods, and we have come out of it. So if you're an Afghan, hope is all you have, and you hold on to that hope. I believe that there is a great opportunity for Afghanistan on this very dangerous journey for peace that the country has begun the last 10 years. But how the next government comes in, how we elect the new president, or how someone comes into power will all contribute to that. But for me, the hope is that the country will have some level of peace, hopefully.
Is there anything you think that New Zealand and we here in the Pacific can learn from Afghani journalists?
Well, it's always possible to learn from each other. I think it's always possible to share ideas. I hope that we will have more New Zealand media coverage of Afghanistan now that the New Zealand forces are no more in Bamiyan. I hope that the coverage will now be focusing on the Afghan people, on the problems, on the victories of the country, on the failures, just like any other country. And I hope, that reporting from Afghanistan will shift from attacks and bombs and killings into other problems, whether that's the issue of women's rights, education, the country's economy, or the country's journey simply, into another phase, into very uncertain phases in the next 10 years.
And I guess that's the area you mentioned there is an area where knowledge of the country is more needed than what it would be for just reporting on a conflict as such. What do you think?
Well, yes, but it is something that is not impossible to have. If you spend time in a country over the period of years, you create that knowledge. You gain that knowledge, and you can get to the story by working with Afghan journalists, but as well as having your own resources and sources and connections that you create as a journalist. It requires investment. It requires human investment, which can be tough, but you have to make that investment in order to be able to tell the story of the people. And I have to do as an Afghan, and that doesn't mean I don't have challenges in this job. That doesn't mean that I know everything. Every day I wake up to new realities, into new very confusing situations, and I think that's just the reality. Whether that you're in Afghanistan, you're in Iraq, or anywhere else, you just have to keep on learning, and you have to keep on relying on the people until you get it right.
But in a time where, of course, many Western media organizations are cutting back and instead you have more PR practitioners, are you still a bit fearful that the media coverage will disappear a bit from Afghanistan?
Well, my heart bleeds as someone who have been to the West and who understands the West through my education and years of experience and personal friendships I have. Why have we come to where we have come? Why is it that we don't care about news and independent journalism? I don't think it's okay for news organizations, and I don't want to name any. I mean almost all of the Western news organizations to have a wake-up call to think we really have to be telling the story of the people outside of these countries. And that doesn't mean Afghanistan, Pakistan. It covers Middle East, it covers many other countries. And the amount of money that is spent on other stuff, that's not how much you need to tell the stories. But, money shouldn't have been a problem. I don't think money is a problem. I think we have a management problem. I think people have made certain choices which are resulting in the problem of not proper coverage for certain countries.